Okay, Civil War. Right, I was really looking forward to this one, filled with anticipation. So the synopsis is as follows. A journey across a dystopian future America, following a team of military-embedded journalists as they race against time to reach DC before rebel factions descend upon the White House. Right, so this, I mean, just the poster got me at first. There was something about Civil War that really drew me in. The fact it was set in a dystopian America, now that is an element that I mainly went to see it for. Didn't really get a dystopian vibe. I was left sorely disappointed, but I'll get to that bit. So Civil War feels like it should be like a recent favourite of mine. It feels like it should be a guilty pleasure, like a rare gem of a cult category. And it even seems a bit sort of purgy, but it just didn't do much for me. It didn't leave me feeling exhilarated. It didn't leave me feeling like, you know, full of excitement, but I mean, it didn't leave me hugely disappointed either. It was sort of wash and go. No, wash and go. It was what sort of. It's ironic. So it was watch and go basically. So yeah, the war photographers, Lee and Joel, they're basically at a hotel planning their route to Washington when Sammy appears, and Stephen, played by Stephen McKinley, and it's actually really it kicks off. So these people are brought together, and they're sort of it's a real mix. So it's a really diverse bunch of characters. So you've got Lee and Joel, and both of these are obviously, well, these are played by Lee Smith. Kirsten Dunst plays Lee, and Joel is played by Wagner Mora, and then Kaylee Spenny, who plays Jessie, comes along, and basically she hitches a ride with them. It's really random the way they're just thrown together. So she's desperate. She's an aspirational sort of photographer, desperate to tag along. And all of a sudden, a road trip kicks off. It doesn't take much convincing for Kirsten Dunst's character to just let her hitch a ride. There's a bit of umming and ahhing before she's just a total doormat. Getting to Washington is the only aim. But along the way, the group sort of need to overcome various obstacles and deadly traps. Now, this element was, I really enjoyed this because there are some real fucked up things similar to the Purge that they encounter on their way there. So, yeah, let me just pull it back to the futuristic aspect. So my first comment, I saw this with a guy I know, and his first comment was, oh, I didn't like that at all. I was really disappointed. So he was like, he had high hopes for Civil War, and so did I. Those were his first comments. My first comment, I specifically remember walking through the foyer and saying that was nowhere near as futuristic as I wanted it to be. Now, I assumed from the advertisements I'd seen out and about that this would be like a few hundred years into the future. One like massive poster even depicts the Statue of Liberty's torch made up of like sandbags and soldiers. Another one was like this ominous sunset over New York with sort of battleships on the water. It really pulled me in, but it just wasn't enough. It wasn't like, I mean, I've seen episodes of Black Mirror that are more dystopian than this. It's set in the near future, but that was not portrayed clearly enough for me. And okay, fine, that might not have been the overall point of Civil War, you know, to focus on the dystopia, but I wanted it and I didn't get it. Not a single element, costumes, sets, the military vehicles, the rules and regulations, the characters or the nation's history, architecture, none of it contribute to this supposedly sort of, post, I would say, apocalyptic kind of dystopian world. None of it. So it does give the impression that it's set in a sort of parallel world of sorts. But other than that, that's the only futuristic nod I got. Now, I have to mention this bit. So it fascinated me. I love little, just like little quirks in films that make you think, oh, heads up, this is futuristic. This is it. This is what I came to see the film for. So towards the end of the movie, there's this really strange sounding helicopter. Most of you out there who have seen this film would know exactly what I mean. So, and it's set, oh, the scene is brilliant. So it's like set at night, and the photographers, they're desperately trying. It's almost like a console game of sorts, where they're darting about, nighttime backdrop. There are tanks sort of like hammering their way through Washington. There's soldiers darting left, right, and center. It's absolute fucking carnage. But this strange sounding helicopter comes dropping in, and it sort of starts it starts tilting backwards and forwards, and it looks like it's drunk almost. And then this like laser comes shooting out of it. It's really weird, and I loved it. And when something in a film stands out for you, well, this was that, basically. It was the only element of Civil War that I found futuristic, basically. So yeah, strange sounding chopper, like laser chopper. And yeah, it was at this is right at the end of the film, and it's actually here where the screenplay really picks up. So let me just very quickly get onto the positives. And I'm getting quite enthusiastic now. My throat's getting really dry. Hang on, give me a second. Right, so positives straight away. So right, wasn't dystopian enough for me. Love the laser chopper. Was disappointed, but also not exhilarated. Fine. Whatever, I'll come back to these points because it might sound slightly confusing. Anyway, positives. Now, first and foremost, the positives of Civil War are the dangers the group of photographers who are trying to get to Washington face, and the action scenes. Now, the moments involving sort of booby-trapped lands and standalone characters who take the law into their own hands, it's just brilliant. It's just echoes of the Purge films for me, and I always come back to the Purge because whenever anything is set in a sort of just a metropolis of absolute fucking carnage where people have just gone psycho and taken the law into their own hands, be it dystopian or not, those sorts of films really do it for me. They really do, because they're so twisted, because when it's in the future, anything's possible. So there's what was it? There's a scene in this where the characters, where they come across like a strange land. So Lee, Joel, Jesse, and Sammy, they come across. It's a lovely, beautiful bit of scenery. So it's really it's a honey trap, basically. It's brilliant. So it's a strangely peaceful town. Sorry, just got to adjust my ring light. Oh, I'm so professional. Right, so they come across this like gorgeous little town, and it's lovely. It reminds me of a town I went to in Texas years ago, Granbury, I think it was called, and it was brilliant, just lovely. Whatever. Anyway, I'm not going into the architecture, but yeah. So they stop for a cigarette and a drink or something, and they go into this shop where this woman's behind the till, and she's just very calmly reading a book. They're like, "What the fuck are you doing? There's a war going on around you." But this town has been left alone, and there's a bit where two of the characters are outside having a cigarette, and they look up, and what seems wonderfully peaceful just becomes deliciously sinister. So there's like residents of the town stood on top of buildings with fucking like rifles in their hands, ready to just blast anyone who acts like the slightest bit out of place. It's great. They're just armed with these snipers looking right down at them. It's a really decent scene. It could have been quite dull, but it was made a hell of a lot more intriguing with the whole relaxed, like casual attitude of the shop girl, and yeah, and the locals just going about doing their daily business, like mowing their lawns. I remember this bit. So the photographers are driving through, and people are like doing their gardens and stuff, like just like dazed and just getting on with normal. It's so weird, so weird. So that was great. The director was really so, and Alex Garland was really like stepping it up for me here. Love these bits. So yeah, people going about their daily business as though civil war wasn't happening outside their border. That it just whipped up the sinister atmos just sevenfold. It was excellent. So right, the anticipation I think was included of like, you know, whether or not the threat from outside would spill over their walls. It was just eerie and compelling. Loved it. So right, the yeah, so that bit was great where they get to this town. And yeah, the let me just see. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, because I've got here again. I mentioned, so funny that I mentioned the purge again in my notes. How, like, you know, the general public taking matters into their own hands, attacking people, laying traps, etc. And yeah, it reminded me a lot of the two old ladies in the first purge pushing their shopping trolleys full of dolls and setting traps of like literal bombs that people would like just fall into and just fall victim. It's horrible. So yeah, there's another, oh god, the scene where that involves Jesse Plemons' character. Good god. It really took me by surprise. There's it was like shall I give, no, I won't give it away. Fuck it. I'm not gonna I'm not going to say anything that could possibly spoil this, but oh god, how do I explain it? There's a bit where they get to like a massive sort of stark field, and there's a soldier, or he's dressed as a soldier, like this fuck off military rifle, and his like his comrade. And oh, Jesse is just fantastic. It's absolutely brilliant. So he basically the guys they approach this soldier, and he starts asking them like he's like, "You're American?" And they're like, "Yeah." And he's like, "What kind of American are you?" You know, and he starts really, it's really threatening. So Jesse Plemons is amazing during this. I mean, I've seen him in some other stuff, but it's his starring moment. He's in it for barely like 3 minutes, but it's just brilliant, and he's so threatening. And oh god, the second where his gun goes off, I literally jumped out of my fucking, like, the cinema seat, like my ass just wasn't on it. It was nuts. So yeah, that's another a brilliant one. There's god, the house where someone's shooting out of it, but you can't, the characters can't see them, the viewer can't see them, they're just like blind, and there's two people like in the grass like just with gun, like, oh my god, it's fucking nuts. Right, these scenes throughout Civil War were just, they were, if they had been filmed or if they'd been shot or sort of performed in the slightest a bit like different way, I think it would have bored me shitless. This film just wouldn't have appealed to me at all. Like I say, I didn't leave the screen incredibly exhilarated, but you know, I wasn't thinking Civil War, I've got to buy this on DVD. But at the same time, it did enough. It didn't leave me incredibly disappointed. So yeah, the scene, oh my god, like I've just mentioned, the scene where they enter Washington at the end, it's just visually, it's just dazzling. It's brilliant. So the nighttime setting just shrouds the picture in this glossy darkness, which means the gunfire and the sparks from the weapons and the steam from the tanks and stuff are emphasized so much more. Oh god, as well as obviously my fave, the helicopter laser. I love my helicopter laser. So yeah, and actually, yeah, give myself credit for being enthusiastic there. The redness of the laser, well, you know, it was just the clarity, basically, how ready it was. A laser's a laser, but you know, I'm very excited about this, obviously. So yeah, there are huge buildings coming down in just clouds of steam. There's there's shit exploding left, right, and center. Now, side note: in other films, when there's shit happening left, right, and center, I switch off because it gets messy. There's a review that's coming up after this one. Or it could be, it could be the review I've just done, because it depends which order I upload these in. But yeah, the Fall Guy. God, the Fall Guy, Jesus, so messy, shit everywhere. Backing extras, cast, crew, explosions, vehicles. It was just horrible. The Fall Guy. I'll get onto that, obviously. So in this case, the shit everywhere was structured in such a way that it was just beautiful. It was so intense. And it just engulfed me incredibly. So you've got buildings coming down, you've got soldiers left, right, and center. The photographers, so you've got Kirsten Dunst, like sort of crouching behind walls. There's a bit where the younger character, so you've got so yeah, when Kirsten Dunst, so you've got Lee and Jessie, played by Kaylee Spenny. The way Jessie, she sort of looks, she sort of turns and looks at the male character, and because she's in between them, and oh god, it's just such a game of cat and mouse. It's so intense, and she looks over at him and she's like, oh my god, because it's hair everywhere, it's fucking everything, shit is hasn't just hit the fan, it's gone through the fan. So there's stuff happening all over the place, and she's like, oh my fucking god, where, it's like she's really enjoying it. So there's that twist of that sinister twist of the character enjoyment and engagement in the middle of a battle zone, it's like enjoying them, like enjoying a war zone. It's really weird. So yeah, there's the bits where they're crouching behind walls, and then when it's safe, they're like, fucking run, and they're all over the place, and it's brilliantly done. Again, the nighttime setting just adds to the clarity of the picture. I love this, absolutely loved it. So yeah, so you've got various those various ones, they're hopping from one spot to another whilst being protected by soldiers. The soldiers are trying to get them to the White House. So it's like, fucking hell, it's like the most tits up chaperone ride you've ever seen. Yeah, so I think it just swamps you in an eerie dread. It's the only way I can describe it. Now, how it all takes place in one continuous sequence as well. I hear from people online, I don't know if this is true, but it was shot in one continuous sequence, or did I just make that up? Either way, how it all takes place in one continuous sequence just amplifies the whole stress of the situation. Now, do not be WhatsApping throughout this scene, because you may miss something. Right, so subsequently they arrive at the White House, and this scene is just I loved it. So this scene was soaked with intrigue and desperation. So how the characters managed to, the wall comes down at first, crash, and then you've got the gardens. So the president is in the White. They're trying to get to the president, and oh my god, it just spirals and spirals. It's incredible. So the president, side note, I have to say, played brilliantly by most of you will recognize him from Parks and Recreation. It plays Ron. So Nick Offerman. He plays the president of the United States of America, and how he does it is it's very subtly done. You can tell he's a nasty bastard, and he's done some terrible things, but he's proud of it. But you only get the feeling of it, or I only got the feeling of this, in these last few, like literally last few seconds, because there's very limited screen time with his character. I prayed for more, but there weren't. What are you going to do? So, yeah, when the photographers actually get to the White House and they make their way to like the Oval Office, oh my god, it snaps and it turns into a kind of like a POV again, like a console game. So it's shot through the lens of the photographers. So you know, in those games where you sort of, oh my god, I sound really old, like I'm getting on, but is it Call of Duty? Is it Call of Duty where there's like you see through the lens of the soldier or whoever it is going about, and it's just sort of, you know, it's sort of pans across, it shifts from left to right, and then it sort of how it zooms in and out. There's sort of like freeze focus. It's like a POV of a console game character. That's the only way I can describe it. So the scene, it kind of freezes as well, actually, through this. So funny I mentioned freeze. They're photographers, right? So they're snapping shots continuously, and each time they do it, it's like ka-ching, and then you've got soldiers like sort of frozen, and then it comes back to the action, and then they're like, oh my god, like darting across the hallways and stuff, like plants being knocked over and shit. It's fucking mad. So you know, the sort of juxtaposition, it's a big one, isn't it? So the juxtaposition of like the whole well, no, it's like the contradiction of the like gorgeous fluffy carpets and like gold framed paintings on the wall with this total fucking shit happening like left, right, and center. It's great. So yeah, so they constantly snap, and there's like you've got to watch it to appreciate it, basically. So yeah, they enter the. Oh, how far am I going without giving this away? I've got a note here that says they enter the presidential suite and the secretary, raises her hands. Another snap where she's like, it's, for documenting complete carnage, 10 out of 10. And the mix up between the sort of cocktail of live and frozen action, it adds a delicious dynamic. So this was fantastic. Again, let me just back myself up, because I do kind of sound a bit contradictory. It's just sort of half and half, because like I was saying, it wasn't dystopian enough for me, and I was really disappointed. But then I was disappointed with that, but then I wasn't left feeling like this film was a complete sort of shot in the dark, because there were these scenes that kept the tension going. Right, so let me see. Actually, let me get on with this. Because I've still got notes. My God, my notes are going on and on and on. Right, cast. You got half household names, half unrecognised. The main group of photographers, so that's Kirsten, Wagner, and Kaylee. They may seem slightly dysfunctional, both actors actually and characters, but it does kind of work. But it is odd. You'll see what I mean when you watch it. You basically have like a child, a very, very old man, and then sort of Kirsten Dunst up against Wagner Mora. So you've got these two in the middle, like talent in the middle, and then you've got like really young and really old. Yeah, it's bizarre. That's strange, but it works. So the age ranges and the male-female ratio, I suppose, keeps it fresh as their mission progresses. Right, on to the negatives. So okay, so I don't know if it was just me, but who was unsure about the cause of the actual war taking place. So I've had a look at a few other people online, their reviews of Civil War, and they touch on the same sort of thing. So the cause, the root thing of the war taking place, the people seem to be rebelling against the president, but what has he actually done? You see like Nick Offerman at the beginning, like holding a conference, and then that's it until like the end. I just wish there was more of him. I mean, because I did wonder what he actually stood for. What the shit was kicking off. The shit had hit the fan, but why? So yeah, he's mentioned sort of sporadically throughout the film, but otherwise no one elaborates on why it's all kicked off, why society's like taken the law into its own hands, what has changed to cause such an uprooting, and who was responsible for the breakdown of society and what were they doing about it. So there weren't much, like there was shit kicking off, but oh my god, it was just dripping with violence. It was such a chaotic scene. Every scene was just chaotic, but nobody was doing anything about it, and nobody was addressing like the cause of the wars, basics. So yeah. Was it a good thing to have the audience thrown into the story without like a concrete plot, or does it give you a chance to create your own context? Who knows? Remains to be seen. But otherwise, Civil War, like I say, it should be a guilty pleasure of mine, like a real rare gem that I would buy on DVD if I still bought these things right here. I don't fucking know. I think the last film I bought was The Invisible Man in 2020. But yeah, if I did still buy DVDs, no, I don't think I would. It just was not. Where was this dystopia and the whole? It just wasn't like. It just wasn't futuristic enough. I just couldn't gauge that from this. And like I say, I went to I went to this with a bloke I know, and he came out. His first reaction was, I really didn't like that. He didn't like it. I didn't like the whole, like I say, the set in 2060 or whenever it was. So yeah. That said, I had my laser chopper and I had the sort of purdy-like scenes throughout. So yeah, I mean, for what it lacks in the sort of in the dystopian depot, it makes up for in the sense of threat and political unease, which, given how the world is at the moment, it's incredibly fucking ironic. It couldn't have come at a better time, but yeah, it's got, in fact, like the fact that it's come like now with the whole Donald Trump episode. It's almost sinister the timing. So yeah. Anyway, Civil War is, it's worth a watch if you fancy like a bit of America in absolute turmoil, which, let's face it, is not news. But yeah, if you like an action film, give it a go. But yeah, it wasn't like it turned out vastly different to what I thought it would be. There wasn't enough Nick Offerman. There weren't a lot, obviously, weren't enough lasers. And yeah, there could have been something different done about it. Make your own minds up. But yeah, that's Civil War.